At our 10th anniversary dinner, Marcus raised his champagne glass, smiling that practiced smile he'd perfected over the years. "To my beautiful wife," he announced to the entire restaurant. 10 years of happiness." The other diners applauded. His parents beamed. And I sat there, perfectly still, watching him perform. Then I reached into my purse and pulled out a small wrapped box, sliding it across the white tablecloth. "Open it," I said quietly. His smile flickered. "Now? Here?" "Yes," I said. "Now. Here. In front of everyone." Because what was inside wasn't a gift. It was a reckoning. Marriage, I learned early, is a story two people tell together. But what happens when only one person is writing it? When I met Marcus at 24, I thought I'd found someone who saw me. Really saw me. Not the version of myself I performed for job interviews or family gatherings, but the actual person underneath. Messy, ambitious, uncertain, real. He was charming in that effortless way some people have, where confidence looks like kindness and attention feels like love. We dated for 2 years before he proposed, and in that time, I convinced myself that the small inconsistencies, the occasional late nights he couldn't explain, the texts he deleted before I could glance at them, were just paranoia, insecurity, the kind of thing women get accused of when they notice patterns men prefer to keep hidden. His mother, Patricia, loved me immediately, or at least she loved the idea of me. Educated, polite, the kind of daughter-in-law who wouldn't embarrass her at country club events. His father, Richard, was quieter but kind, the sort of man who believed in tradition and loyalty and keeping family business private. Our wedding was beautiful. I won't take that away from the memory. White peonies everywhere, a string quartet, vows we wrote ourselves that made people cry. Marcus looked at me like I was the only person in the room, and for one perfect day, I believed it. The first year was good, maybe even great. We bought a house, a modest Victorian that needed work, but had good bones. I threw myself into renovations, into making it ours. Marcus traveled for work, sales conferences, client meetings, investor pitches. He was building something, he said, building our future. By year 3, the absences got longer. The explanations got vaguer. But he always came home with flowers, with apologies, with promises that next month would be different. And I wanted to believe him. God, I wanted to believe him. I worked as a financial analyst, long hours, detailed work, the kind of job that required precision and patterns. Maybe that's why I started noticing the discrepancies. Not all at once. Not in some dramatic moment of discovery. Just slowly, quietly, like water finding cracks in a foundation. Credit card statements with charges from cities he said he'd never visited. Hotel receipts for double occupancy when he swore he'd stayed with a college friend. A second phone bill, found tucked into his gym bag, a number I didn't recognize with thousands of texts and calls logged over months. When I asked about it, he had answers. Always had answers. The charges were business expenses his assistant booked wrong. The hotel upgraded him automatically. The second phone was for work. A company requirement. Something about separating personal and professional. I wanted to believe him. So I did. For years, I believed him, because the alternative was admitting I'd married a stranger. His parents adored him. Marcus could do no wrong in their eyes. When we'd visit for Sunday dinners, Patricia would gush about his promotions, his success, his dedication. She'd squeeze my hand and whisper, "You're so lucky." And I'd smile and nod, because that's what you do. You perform the story everyone wants to hear. But by year 7, I wasn't performing anymore. I was surviving. I started documenting everything, not because I wanted to catch him, because I needed to know I wasn't losing my mind. I kept a folder on my laptop, password protected, filled with screenshots, receipts, dates, patterns. I tracked his location when he said he was in Boston, but his credit card showed charges in Miami. I saved the texts that came through at 2 a.m. that he'd delete by morning. I told myself I was gathering information, that someday I'd confront him with evidence so clear he couldn't lie his way out of it. But what I was really doing was building a case. Not for him. For me. Proof that my instincts weren't betraying me. That the marriage I thought I had was never real to begin with. Then came the planning for our 10th anniversary. Marcus insisted on something big, something public. "We should celebrate," he said, kissing my forehead like I was a child who needed reassurance. 10 years is a milestone. He chose the restaurant, the Palm Court, the kind of place with white tablecloths and waiters who know which fork goes where. He invited his parents. He posted about it on social media, crafting the narrative before the night even happened. "A decade with my best friend," the caption read, accompanied by a photo of us from our wedding day. I read it and felt nothing. Not anger, not sadness. Just a cold, clear certainty that I was done pretending. That's when I made my plan. The 2 weeks before the anniversary dinner, I worked methodically. I wasn't angry anymore. Anger had burned out years ago, leaving something sharper in its place. Clarity. I hired a private investigator. Not because I needed more proof. I had plenty. But because I needed something undeniable. Something he couldn't explain away with his smooth words and practiced deflections. Her name was Naomi Chen, a former forensic accountant who'd moved into private investigations after her own divorce. She was direct, efficient, no nonsense. "Most people wait too long," she said during our first meeting. "They want to believe. I get it. But belief doesn't change facts." It took her 9 days. 9 days. To compile a report that shattered every lie Marcus had carefully constructed over the last decade. Hotel stays with a woman named Melissa Grant, a marketing executive he'd met at a conference in year 2 of our marriage. Matching flight bookings spanning 5 years. Joint reservations under fake names at resorts in Cabo, Napa, Charleston. Venmo payments with heart emojis. Text threads discussing their anniversary, which apparently coincided with mine. Naomi didn't editorialize. She just handed me a bound folder and said, "I'm sorry." I read it cover to cover that night, while Marcus was supposedly at a late client meeting. Every page was a confirmation of what I already knew, but had been too afraid to name. He hadn't made a mistake. He hadn't had a moment of weakness. He'd built an entire second life, parallel to ours, and maintained it with the same dedication other men gave to their careers. The woman, Melissa, wasn't some affair. She was a relationship. They had routines, inside jokes, a shared Spotify playlist, photos together that he'd never posted but saved in a hidden album on a cloud account Naomi had accessed. In one photo, they were at a beach, his arm around her waist, both of them laughing. He was wearing the watch I'd given him for our 5th anniversary. That detail landed differently than all the others, not because it hurt more, but because it crystallized everything. He'd taken pieces of our life and woven them seamlessly into his lie. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just closed the folder and started planning. The gift box was small, wrapped in silver paper with a black ribbon. I'd chosen it carefully. Elegant, understated, the kind of presentation that matched the restaurant's aesthetic. Inside wasn't jewelry or a watch or some sentimental token. Inside was a USB drive containing every piece of evidence Naomi had compiled, organized into a neat digital presentation, complete with timestamps, receipts, and GPS coordinates. But Marcus didn't know that yet. The dinner started exactly as he'd scripted it. We arrived at the Palm Court at 7. His parents were already seated, Patricia in pearls, Richard in a navy blazer. They stood when they saw us, hugs and congratulations, the performance of a happy family celebrating a milestone. Marcus ordered champagne, the expensive kind. He made small talk with the waiter about the menu, charming and attentive, every inch the devoted husband. I smiled. I nodded. I played my part. Patricia reached across the table and squeezed my hand. 10 years, she said warmly. You two are an inspiration. We work at it, Marcus said smoothly, covering my other hand with his. Marriage is a partnership. Communication, trust, showing up for each other every single day. I felt the weight of those words, each one a tiny detonation. The food came. We ate. Conversations flowed around me. Business updates, vacation plans, some story about Richard's golf game. I contributed when expected, laughed at, appropriate moments, and waited. Then Marcus raised his glass. I want to make a toast, he announced, loud enough that nearby tables turned to look. He loved an audience. To my beautiful wife. 10 years of happiness, 10 years of building a life together. I'm the luckiest man alive. The restaurant erupted in polite applause. Patricia dabbed at her eyes. Richard raised his glass with a proud smile. And I reached into my purse. The box slid across the tablecloth with barely a sound. Marcus's smile held, but something shifted behind his eyes. Confusion. Maybe the first flicker of fear. What's this? He asked, still performing for the room. Your anniversary gift, I said. Open it. Now? Here? Yes. Now. Here? In front of everyone. His hand hesitated over the box. Can't we wait until... Open it, Marcus. Patricia leaned forward, delighted. Oh, how sweet. What is it? He had no choice. Not without making a scene. Not without breaking character. So he pulled the ribbon loose, tore the paper carefully, and opened the box. The USB drive sat on a bed of black tissue paper, silver and small and utterly unremarkable. What? He started. It's everything, I said quietly. Every hotel, every flight, every lie. 5 years of receipts, text messages, photos, all organized chronologically. There's even a highlight reel. The color drained from his face. Patricia blinked. What is she talking about? I didn't look away from Marcus. He knows. Cat, he said, voice dropping. Stop. Why? I asked. You wanted to celebrate. So let's celebrate. Let's celebrate how you spent our 5th anniversary in Cabo with Melissa while I thought you were in Denver for a conference. Let's celebrate how you told me you were visiting college friends in Charleston when really you were at a couple's resort. Let's celebrate. Enough, he hissed. But I wasn't done. Let's celebrate the second phone you've been hiding for 3 years. The Venmo payments with heart emojis. The matching Christmas gifts you bought, her and me. Different colors, same designer. Richard's fork clattered against his plate. Marcus? This is insane, Marcus said, his voice cracking. She's been stressed. She's not... I hired an investigator, I said calmly. Everything on that drive has been verified, cross-referenced, and documented. Bank statements, phone records, GPS data. It's all there. Patricia's hand flew to her mouth. No, that's not possible. I finally looked at her. It's not only possible. It's been happening for most of our marriage. Marcus stood abruptly, his chair scraping loud against the floor. We're leaving. Sit down, I said. Cat, sit down. Something in my voice must have reached him because he sank back into his chair, face pale, hands shaking. I turned to Patricia and Richard. I'm sorry you're finding out this way. I truly am. But I couldn't let him stand here and lie anymore. Not to you, not to these strangers, and not to me. This is a misunderstanding, Patricia whispered. Marcus would never. He did, I said gently. And he's been doing it for years. The only reason you didn't know is because I kept quiet. Because I believed him. Because I wanted the story he was selling to be true. Richard's face had gone hard. Son, is this true? Marcus opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. Dad, Is it true? The question hung in the air like a blade. It's complicated, Marcus finally said. It's really not, I replied. The restaurant had gone silent. Every table within earshot was watching now. The performative anniversary toast transformed into something far more real and raw. Patricia was crying quietly, mascara streaking down her carefully made-up face. Richard sat frozen, staring at his son like he was trying to reconcile the man in front of him with the person he thought he'd raised. Marcus looked around desperately, searching for an exit, a deflection, anything to regain control. But there was nowhere to go. No smooth explanation, no charming pivot. You've been spying on me, he said finally, grasping at outrage. Going through my things, hiring investigators. That's insane, Kat. That's necessary, I finished, because you've been lying since year 2. You don't understand. Then explain it, I said. Explain Melissa. Explain the trips. Explain how you looked me in the eye every single day and pretended to be someone you're not. He couldn't. The words wouldn't come. Because there was no explanation that would make it acceptable. No context that would soften the betrayal. I think, Richard said quietly, his voice heavy with disappointment, we should leave. No, I said. Stay. Please. Patricia looked at me, stunned. Why would you want us to stay? Because you need to hear this, I said. You need to understand what he's been hiding. Not just from me, from all of you. I pulled out my phone and opened the folder I'd prepared. Not the full investigator's report, that was too much, but a curated selection. A photo of Marcus and Melissa at a restaurant, clearly intimate. A text thread where he called her baby and made plans to meet in Atlanta. A hotel receipt from our 7th anniversary weekend when he'd told me he had to work. I slid the phone to Richard first. He looked. Really looked. Then passed it to Patricia. She stared at the screen, her hand trembling. How long? 5 years, I said. That we know of. We? Marcus echoed bitterly. You mean you and your hired spy? I mean me and reality. I shot back. The thing you've been avoiding. Patricia set the phone down carefully, like it might break. Marcus, how could you? Mom, how could you do this to her? To us? To yourself? He had no answer. For the first time in 10 years, Marcus was out of words. I took a breath, feeling strangely calm. I'm filing for divorce. The papers were served to your office this afternoon. My lawyer has copies of everything. The house is in my name. I bought it before we married, so you'll need to find somewhere else to stay. I've already changed the locks. You can't just... I can, I said. And I am. Richard cleared his throat. Marcus, I think you should go. Dad, go. Marcus looked at each of us in turn, his face a mixture of anger, shame, and something that might have been genuine regret. But it was too late for regret. Years too late. He stood, threw his napkin on the table, and walked out without another word. The three of us sat in silence for a long moment. Around us, the restaurant slowly resumed its normal rhythm, conversations picking back up, silverware clinking, the world moving forward. "I'm so sorry," Patricia finally said, her voice broken. "I had no idea." "I know. If I'd known—" "You would have defended him," I said, not unkindly. "That's what parents do." She flinched, but didn't argue. Richard reached across the table and took my hand. "What do you need?" That question, simple and direct, almost broke me, because it was the first time anyone had asked. The first time someone prioritized my needs over Marcus's comfort. "I need," I said slowly, "to not be lied to anymore." He nodded. "Then we'll tell you the truth about everything." And he did. Right there, over cold appetizers and untouched champagne, Richard told me things Marcus had hidden. Business failures. Marcus blamed on partners. Debts he'd quietly paid off. A pattern of deception that went back further than I'd known. "He's always been good at stories," Richard said heavily. "At making people believe what he wanted them to believe. I thought marriage would change that. That you would change that." "It's not her job to fix him," Patricia said quietly, a crack forming in her carefully constructed denial. "No," I agreed. "It isn't." 3 months later, the divorce was finalized. Marcus fought it initially, tried to claim he deserved half of everything, that I was being vindictive. But the evidence was overwhelming. His lawyer took one look at the investigator's report and advised him to settle. He moved in with Melissa. I heard through mutual friends that they lasted 6 weeks before she found out he'd been seeing someone else. Apparently, leopards don't change their spots. They just find new trees. Patricia called me every few weeks. Tentative at first, apologetic, then gradually more comfortable. We met for coffee. She apologized again, properly this time, for all the times she'd dismissed my concerns or made excuses for her son. "I wanted to believe the best of him," she said, "but I ignored what was real." "I did too," I admitted, for a long time. Richard helped me with the house, fixing things Marcus had always promised to get to but never did. We didn't talk much about Marcus. Instead, we talked about the future, about the life I was building, about second chapters. The house sold faster than I expected. I took the money and moved to Portland, somewhere new, somewhere without ghosts. I started over. New job, new apartment, new routines that belonged only to me. I dated eventually, carefully, with clearer eyes and better boundaries. And when someone asked about my past, I told the truth. Not the pretty version, not the story people wanted to hear, the real one. Because here's what I learned. Marriage isn't about the performance. It's not about perfect anniversary dinners or social media posts or making other people comfortable with your choices. It's about showing up, honestly. About choosing each other, actively, every single day. About building something real instead of just maintaining the illusion. And when someone shows you through their actions, not their words, that they've chosen something else, you have a choice too. You can keep pretending, keep hoping, keep breaking yourself into smaller pieces to fit into their lie. Or you can stand up, walk out, and build a life that doesn't require you to ignore reality to survive it. I chose to walk, and for the first time in 10 years, I wasn't performing anymore. I was just living. Messy, uncertain, real. And that, more than any anniversary dinner, felt like something worth celebrating. If this story resonated with you, drop a comment about where you're watching from. And if you've ever had to choose between a comfortable lie and an uncomfortable truth, you're not alone. Don't forget to subscribe for more stories. Because sometimes The bravest thing you can do is stop pretending everything's fine and start telling the truth.